That's really very valuable. So we have some time now for questions for Dr. Russell, for Dr. Kolodner, for Dr. Clegg, and we have a mic we can pass around, so feel free to ask away. We have about 5 or 8 minutes before we go to lunch.
Thank you. This question is for Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell, in your presentation, you mentioned about the current and pending support. And I would like to ask if the pending support is a proposal that you have submitted, but you don't know that it's going to be awarded. So what do you mean with pending support?
Current support would be grant funding that you currently have from federal or other major sources, and pending support are grant proposals that you have submitted but you don't know what the outcome is yet.
Okay, thank you.
Other question?
You mentioned forming an advisory committee with different expertise, and you mentioned an evaluator. Is it okay to identify the evaluator in the proposal?
Yes. That's a simple answer. And depending on the program, you may structure your research and evaluation in different ways. For example, if you're developing, let's say you're developing a new museum technique, you may want to take a design-based research approach. And so that's one thing. If you're doing foundational research, you may have it's more like a straight-up cognitive research project. And in that case, the advisory committee might be the evaluation, and they might, in effect, be a committee of visitors that gives you iterative, continual critique of, what you're doing and what results you're getting, and trying to advise you on if you're carrying it out effectively and if you're using the best methodologies to address the questions that you've identified. So there's no cookie-cutter approach, I guess, is the bottom line.
I wonder if you go to any kind of educating reviewers or orienting reviewers to program-specific issues, like cyber learning, to my understanding, not specifically focusing on STEM teaching or learning STEM topics, or exploratory projects are not focusing on testing the effectiveness, efficacy of a program. Because in the past, I have an experience in applying for another program at DRK-12. It was exploratory program. The solicitation specified the exploratory program does not require some specific testing the efficacy, but the reviewer said, they don't have any, the proposal doesn't illustrate testing the effectiveness, or something like that. So,
well, the peer review process isn't bulletproof, and and really the peer review, if you want to think, if you've served on a jury, it's very similar to that if you've never been a reviewer, and it's true that one review panel might give a proposal a very high recommendation, or another one might not rate it quite as highly. And I've had the experience of submitting a proposal, getting positive comments, but not getting funded, and then resubmitting a proposal, trying to address these comments, and then getting turned down again for different reasons. So that happens. And when you have different reviewers each time, well, people may bring different perspectives. So just one comment about training. We have webinars to try to train reviewers into the basics of programs, and I think that helps, but obviously, not in every case.
One of the nice things about panels, rather than just having individual reviews, is that when a panelist is off on something, the other panelists tell them that. So just a little bit of a hint about how to read the reviews that you get back. Okay, the first thing you should do is read the letter that comes from your program officer. And the next thing you should read is, that's going to have like a general, I give you a general idea about why you were not funded. Okay, if you're funded, you won't you won't wonder about these things, right? The second thing you do is you read the panel summary, because the panel summary is the summary of what got discussed. And you only read the individual reviews after that, because there will be things that are in individual reviews, like a reviewer will not have paid attention during the webinar, or will have some idiosyncratic ideas about what it should be or whatever, and that will be in the review. But if it's not in the panel summary, okay, it was not taken into account. Okay, so that's really what you want to think about. That there's something about having numbers of people together that helps with that issue that Bob was talking about.
Question that may help the junior faculty trying to apply for these grants is, in my advising students, I notice the one that I like her moving upwards. The most difficult part is justifying a borderline concept, and this kind of piggyback a little bit on what she was asking you. The literature may have sufficient information to support two aims of the application, and one aim in which you are basically framing your main idea is on an emerging borderline concept for which perhaps there are 2 or 3 people doing it, but you don't know yet about it. So I think it would be good if you can give advice on that topic.
Well, of course, NSF, I believe in its mission statement, talks about new frontiers of research and knowledge, and that's really the kind of, NSF wants to get cutting-edge ideas, and with the peer review process, hopefully it doesn't restrain that too much. So I think the main thing is you need to have a good, need to have when I say evidence-based, you need to have a good argument for why you're doing what you're doing, and it's not just something you pulled out of your ear. So if you have a creative idea, you can demonstrate that this idea has great promise for hopefully reasons that you can discuss, but maybe it hasn't been done yet or hasn't been done very much yet. And so you just have to explain to the best you can to make a strong argument for what you want to do. If there's a strong research base, well, then you need to review that. If there's not a strong research base, you need to discuss why this is a very promising idea that has great potential. It might be high risk, high gain. In fact, NSF has a grant category for projects that don't quite fit in the standard boxes. It's called EAGER. So if you look up EAGER and NSF, you'll see that there's a grant category for high-risk, high-gain projects that are ideas that just really don't fit well within any of the existing grant categories. So there's, it's not necessarily easy to get that, but there is a provision for that.
So I also wanted to add that, like, in my experience, I've had a lot of declines as well. And one of the things that that I think helped me through that process too was when you get the decline and you see the specific things that people say, like they're giving you very specific things, but you also have to kind of read between the lines and see what some of the big picture things are that they may have missed or not have gotten. And a good way to kind of avoid that before you even submit it is to do a round of critique or get critiques from other people who see the world very differently than you do, but who might be on the review panel. So, for example, with our most recent cyber learning grant, we got a lot of so I come from more of a learning sciences background, so I got some really core computer science people who understood design and the type of work that I was doing, but came from a very different perspective. And some of the questions they asked were like, "Why are you even doing this?" or "Why would anybody, why is this even important?" or that kind of thing. And that really helped me to figure out that, okay, this is how we need to frame it. Like, we need to frame it differently, because if I say it this way, then people are going to, if I say it the way that I have it, then people are going to go in this different direction. That's not the direction I intend for them to do it in. So a lot of it comes from also having people read it beforehand.
Dr. Russell, I know you had up there in your presentation not to submit the same proposal multiple times. So I just want to ask you, when do you recommend resubmitting it again? I know if you had all poor or fair ratings, you would.
That should have been stated more clearly. Maybe if that had been submitted in a grant proposal, it would have been critiqued. Because what I really meant by that is, is don't submit the same exact proposal to multiple programs at the same time. So last year, for example, I had a proposal that was submitted to informal DRK-12, iTest, and maybe one other program, and it was pretty much, 98% of the narrative was the same, and they would give, change a few sentences so that it seemed like it belonged in that program, but so we don't recommend that. You should find the best home for your idea and submit it to that program. So that was the point there. But as I said, you shouldn't submit the same. I mean, if your proposal's turned down, well, you should revise it. You shouldn't just, do a little window dressing, change the window dressing a little bit and resubmit it. You should take to heart some of the comments that the reviewers and program officer have given you and then try to address those to the degree you can. And then there's no guarantees, but certainly NSF, I would say, don't submit the same proposal 10 times because, but, submitting the same proposal 2 or 3 times is often productive, and through the iterative feedback you're getting from reviewers and from your colleagues, you may end up with the best possible design that you could have come up with.
Do you have any words of wisdom to share on sustainability and developing a sustainability plan?
That's an interesting issue because currently, in education, the emphasis is on new knowledge. So new knowledge, it would be sustained by being productive, in research and publications, so that the project would live on because it came up with some certain research results. There are programs, let's say like DRK-12, where often there is a product that comes out of it. So I think that to the degree you can sustain not the project, if you got a $3 million grant, well, it's going to be hard to keep doing what you're doing unless somebody else gives you another couple of $1 million. But there might be ways in which you can produce tangible resources. Research publications are really important. In addition to that, if producing some curriculum or a teacher professional development model or some new aspect of cyber learning, if you end up with what I might call a thing, a product, a tool, a resource, if you can document, that can be part of what you promise to deliver in your proposal, and you have a promising way of making that available in a powerful way, that could certainly strengthen your proposal. Many dissemination is in a way sort of sustainability. It's sustaining the new knowledge that has resulted from your project, and often people just list, okay, I'm going to do these conferences and I'm going to submit potential publications to these peer-reviewed publications. That's good, but how about a communication strategy where you say, well, this research ought to be really relevant to audiences X, Y, and Z. So for first audience, here's how I'm going to reach them effectively. In the second audience, here's how I'm going to reach them effectively, so that they get to know about this new information and resources and research that might really benefit them.
Any more questions? I think we have time for 1 or 2 more.
Thank you. I just wanted to get your opinion on broader impacts. I served on 2 panels. I won't mention the specifics, but there was a huge difference in how people approach broader impacts. And basically, in a nutshell, most of the proposals were saying, my broader impact is I'm educating a PhD student. And then they mentioned like one sentence which kind of was iterating their intellectual merit and saying that that would contribute to greater society, blah, blah, blah. So, I'm as a reviewer, I care also a lot about broader impacts, and obviously I recommended that people need to be more creative about it. And I heard you say about being creative with intellectual merit, and maybe you could comment on broader impacts as well.
Okay, well, first of all, many people interpret broader impacts to be broader participation, and in other words, engaging underrepresented, underserved groups in our country. And that's certainly very important, and I know many of you here, that's part of your mission of why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, Janet, kick me if this example doesn't work, but let's say broader impacts, let's say Fitbit, it was a combination health, education, and new technology. So the benefits to the nation would clearly be, people will become healthier, so that's a clear benefit. Maybe this new technology could have other applications of, transmitting data from individuals about something that would be of some benefit. So those are a couple of examples of, so in other words, the broader impacts our nation needs a good defense, it needs a good economy, it needs everybody in the economy to have clear access, it needs new technological developments, you can go on. So all of these are broader impacts. So there's no narrow definition of broader impacts. It's just how does this benefit the nation overall? And there are many different types of broader impacts that can occur.